Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Soviet Russian Bear, and Joaquin is back with me. By the way, it's great to have you back, Joaquin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Joaquin, the subject of today's video are the upcoming elections in the United States, the presidential election, and basically we have two candidates, Joe Biden from the Democrat Party and Donald Trump from the Republican Party. Donald Trump is an incumbent president right now. So the United States campaign, I've seen the debates between the latest debates between Biden and Trump, and basically what they were telling, they're blaming each other for poverty, for unemployment, for racism, for the pandemic. The Republicans, Democrats, play their typical blame game, like they blame each other. So I would like to hear your outlook of who do you think will win the election?
Well, what do you mean by the election? Do you mean the outcome of the votes in each state by the electors, or do you mean the entire extra legal contest and or all of the techniques and methods being used to change the outcome? You just mean who's going to be the next president, or do you mean who's going to win the election, or what do you?
I
Those are
mean,
very
of
different
course,
questions. Is the problem?
who is going to be like the next president? Like, technically, it is the same person who wins the election. At least Trump won the electors' vote, but Hillary won the popular
Oh
vote.
no, I'm not even talking about that. I mean, that's a fair point, and you're absolutely correct, of course. But I mean, actually, uh, we won't know on election night, according to social media, according to the Democrat Party, and according to Antifa. We won't know on election night, who is the winner of the election. So this is going to be looked already. The Supreme Court ruled uh, that these votes can come in 3 or 4 days. I think 3 days after November 3rd. So we're already at November 6th. That people can keep voting. But the thing is that there's going to be tallies being published for the public on November 3rd. So that means that the deep state is going to be able to activate the Democracy Alliance, George Soros, NGOs, contact tracers, or whoever has received funding under whatever rubric or whatever pretext. Activists who are paid, so I don't know if you even call that an activist, to go out and ballot harvest. So they're going to be harvesting ballots, and they're going to be targeting where does Joe Biden need 10,000 more votes in this precinct or in this state, or 5,000 more votes in this precinct, 6,000 more votes, just enough to be the winner in those precincts in those swing states. So this is going to be a swing state determined election, as the last number of countless elections have been, but now they can take the result and then change the result post facto. So who will be the winner, who will be the next president, is going to rely on probably the Supreme Court, probably the activity of the Justice Department, and so with that in mind, I would say that Donald Trump would be the next president.
Yeah, well, speaking of Supreme Court, the if you're following it, you've obviously heard that the judge, the Ruth Ginsburg, if I'm not mistaken, she died, and this woman was one of the top, well, I don't know how to call it. She was one of the top ideologists of those liberal, like pro-feminist, pro-democrat, pro-LGBTQ, and pro-open border stuff. And instead, I don't know if she got approved yet or not. Instead, I don't exactly remember. Coney Barrett was
Amy Coney Barrett.
Amy Coney Barrett was appointed, and she is more of a more on the not conservative, more of a
Sure,
normal,
conservative is fine. Yeah.
more of a normal type of person instead of this globalist insanity.
Right. Well, I would say she's a conservative. I mean, in the traditional, even the pre-crazy definition of term, she's quite conservative.
Yeah.
But I think her confirmation is today. So, or she is. They vote. Yeah, the confirmation I think is today. So.
Yeah. So
But-
if
but
she,
yeah.
yeah. So if she is the judge, then yeah, Trump is going to be the next president of the U.S.
Most probably. I mean,
Yeah.
it really depends on it's there are. It really depends on the way that the case is presented, but I suspect that the legal teams on both sides already know how the case is going to be presented. So it's going to be contingent upon, what's called stare decisis, which is basically the practice of precedent. The thing is that judges are expected. I mean, they're not obligated, but they're normally considered consistent and most legitimate. They're appointed by life, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But they're considered to be consistent, and they normally act consistently based upon their past rulings and based upon the past rulings of the court as it has been framed in the series of decisions in related cases. But cases that are related aren't what we think are related. So it could be something unrelated that we think is like a case about a guy who fell over, at McDonald's, and it went to the Supreme Court, but it was contingent upon a certain interpretation, which will be used in this case. So it's not even related to election law per se, but it could be related to all sorts of things that could surprise us. Also, Chief Justice Roberts is probably among the more liberal of the conservative judges, so we don't really know where that will fall. So this is just a best guess, but when you look at the debate performance of the other night, affecting swing states like Pennsylvania with energy and coal, and Biden said, yeah, we're going to phase out coal, we're going to phase this out. Or New Mexico, I think they have natural gas, and the New Mexico governor is a Democrat, and she's quite progressive, liberal, and she's distancing herself from the Green New Deal because she's pretty much progressive on everything except the Green New Deal, right? So she's like, wait a minute, because they could lose. New Mexico could flip blue, and Pennsylvania could go to Trump. So this is a swing state-driven election, and like you said, the Supreme Court decision and the confirmation of, they call her ACB, is going to be determinative. But listen, on the point about Ginsburg, she died like a couple years ago. Everybody knows that. So it was actually, this was a palace coup to against the corruption in the Supreme Court. That's the problem, is that all of them knew that Ginsburg was.
Oh, by the way, wasn't Ginsburg the immigrant from Odessa? She's a Ukrainian Jew or something like that.
Yeah, she may well be, but the point is that she was dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's very interesting. I mean, survived the Holocaust, whatever. But the point is that she is dead. She has been dead for a couple of years, and the thing what people don't understand is that each Supreme Court justice has like 50 clerks, and all of them were like the law review, which is like the editors of the newspaper or the journal of the law school from the most prestigious law schools in the country. And there's like tier 1, but then there's like A class of tier 1. So you have like the top 50 law schools, and then you have like the top of the top. And to be a clerk, even for like a federal district judge, you have to have graduated near the top of your class and been law review, and which means you're editing the school's newspaper, journal rather. And what's interesting about Ginsburg is that, and actually the whole Supreme Court, is that each Supreme Court justice has like a whole cult of personality around them. So they like people who want to be a clerk for a specific Supreme Court justice is because they are like obsessed with the cult of that justice. So it's a religion. They're kind of like, the pantheon of gods, Mars, Jupiter, Aries, and right, all that, right? So when you have so there's like the Supreme Court justice are like the pantheon of law gods, and people are members of different religions. Okay, so Ginsburg's cult they know her decisions backwards and forwards because everyone who went to law school had to study this. In fact, every Supreme Court ruling is known what it's going to be light years ahead of time. Light years ahead of time, the Supreme Court rulings are known because there's grids and maps about how you map out, based on stare decisis, how you map out the rulings that are going to be coming on whatever the issue is. And these law clerks, this is the point here. How was Ginsburg able to pretend to be alive while a number of rulings came out that were supposedly authored or ruled on in part by Ginsburg, is that her clerks know her mind inside and out. So she could be like Admiral Pike from Star Trek, like in a vegetative state or whatever. She could be like on the deathbed, on the life support, and unable to whatever, like blink twice, whatever. And her law clerk can write all her stuff out. So she was on life support or dead this whole time. Yeah. What happened is somehow it was exposed, and it wasn't supposed to be exposed until Biden was president. The original idea, you see, the reason that Obama left open almost 200 federal district positions for federal district judges, and that Ginsburg, it was not revealed that Ginsburg was dead, was because Hillary Clinton was supposed to win. And in the brokered agreement in 2007, where Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the Democrat Party nominee, the deep state decided that because of the need to pursue these wars in the Middle East, which Obama is very connected to the Saudis, and also because of AFRICOM and the need to establish Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Africa, and also because there was a growing unrest surrounding quantitative easing and the banker bailout, Clinton was considered not the best candidate by the deep state. Clinton does not control the deep state. She is a high priestess in their, whatever you want to call it, their satanic cult, whatever you want to call it, but she does not run the deep state, all right? So it was decided that Clinton, but for Clinton not to put up her fight, because, these are individuals. These are individualists. They are in a conspiracy together, okay? But they are extreme individualists, and they are at war with each other, just like all the demonic forces always are. So here's the thing, dude. She was supposed to get all those appointments that Obama left open, and it was supposed to be announced. They were going to announce that Ginsburg died sometime after Clinton was inaugurated. She was not supposed to win. She was not supposed to win. So that's the real interesting thing about the Supreme Court. You see, Scalia, who ACB replaced, was murdered by John Podesta, right? So they were they wanted to actually stack the court. The Democrats talking about court stacking is ridiculous. They actually murdered Scalia. I don't like Scalia. I have his book right here. It's called A Matter of Interpretation. I had to study it in pre-law, okay, at the university. And Scalia, I don't agree with this concept of judicial interpretation. I don't agree with liberal interpretation either, but I know a few things about how the court works. So his book, A Matter of Interpretation, is the center of his cult. It's like his Bible. And ACB comes also from the same organization as Scalia. They are Opus Dei and Knights of Columbus. And Knights of Columbus is like one front. Opus Dei is like the real shit, as they would say, right? So bringing in ACB was like a big FU to those parts of the deep state that are opposed to Opus Dei, which by no means is like some clean group of whatever. I'm just giving you the analysis, like, right? So Scalia was Opus Dei. He was murdered by John Podesta's people. Obama had that vacancy to fill. That's where this whole mess came about, with this whole fight over the Supreme Court. A Supreme Court justice has never been murdered before. Let me say that again. A Supreme Court justice has never been murdered before. Scalia was found with a pillow over his face, but he was murdered at a location, because that's how the Clintons and Podestas do things, at a location where they had control over the local law enforcement and how the death certificate would be written up, how the arriving police officers would decide to do things. Well, actually, the photographs from the crime scene actually were untampered and showed the pillow over his face. So that's very weird stuff, to contemplate. Just to put that out right now. This is far more interesting than just, is Trump going to win, or how is ACB going to rule? That's why I'm putting it out there like that.
Yeah, but the media actually reported back then that Scalia that just died of, natural causes. That's what the media reported.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
in fact, he was murdered by Podesta's or Clinton's people.
That's right. That's right.
He was like choked with a pillow. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like smothered with a pillow, right?
Smothered. Yeah. Strangled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Strangled, yeah.
Okay, but sorry, but my script, the question in my script was, I was talk. I would like the next question in my script that I'm about to ask you. You touched it before, but I would ask you. I would like to ask you about states, not just the swing states, and yeah, but kind of, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and other Rust Belt states. They were like Trump's They were the backbone of Trump supporters back in 2016. So because the Midwest, the Rust Belt, they probably are the most betrayed because because in an interview back then when the riots erupted in the U.S. because of the murder of George Floyd, I actually interviewed a guy named Cody. You probably know him from New Resistance. Yeah. So he told me in the interview that the Midwest is the most betrayed because of the outsourcing of all the jobs to China and to China and third world countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and cities like Cleveland, Milwaukee, Southside Chicago, they basically became breeding grounds of crime. It's very violent.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think Trump? Basically, what do do those cities still support Trump? Do those states are they still for Trump, or do they feel even more betrayed? Because of
the most important thing is you have to ignore fake news.
Yeah.
The worst polling is being done by 538. That's completely Democrat. Real clear politics is a little bit closer to reality, but the problem is that they only are using different formulas to aggregate the other polling institutes that are considered credible, and they rank them between A through D, I think. And there's a university, the name slips my mind, in Alabama, which is only considered to be a C-rated poll, but they did a pretty decent sample size, and they saw Trump ahead 8 to 12 points in places that other polls have him even or behind by 4. What happened in 2016 is that it looks like the polls were off by about 6 points, 4 to 6 points. And so what was supposed to happen is they were supposed to make that correction by about that much in new polls or adjust their methods, but there's not any strong indication, in my opinion, that these polling methods have been improved. Primarily that's acquisition to cell phones and other methods of polling, because who the fuck picks up a landline phone in 2020 at home at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday? I mean, I could see unemployed people that might be more Democrat, or I could see old people that are receiving newsletters and vote, suggestion ballots from the AARP saying to vote for Biden, that he's going to defend, Medicare and so forth. So I can see the polling would be skewed heavily just by that. I mean, they're not polling people who are at work, who have a smartphone, cell phone. Many people don't have I don't have a landline, right? Many people don't have a landline, so the polling is off. I think the polling is off by 12 to 16 points, and so where you see Biden plus 8, I would say it's Trump plus 4. But why do I say that? Besides that their methods are wrong, that doesn't mean that my head is very clear. This is why I say this, Yuri. There are not any people who voted for Trump in statistically significant numbers in 2016 that have either switched party affiliation or have said that they are that they are voting for Biden. So you don't look at all these, samples, whatever the sample size or whatever. You actually just look at the big picture. There's another factor. If people are afraid to say that they support Trump, they're not sure who's calling them, and then they don't know. They work somewhere. The bosses, we live in cancel culture times.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Are not accurate. They're not telling people who they're voting for. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to go vote for Trump. and they're like, oh yeah, I'm undecided. Maybe Biden, I guess. But then they go vote for Trump. And then you have the fact of that the last major poll on satisfaction, not asking about there's two other polls. There's one that says, who are your neighbors voting for? So that's why people don't have to say, well, who I'm voting for. This is meant to offset that fear of saying that you're voting for Trump. Who are your neighbors voting for? And Trump is winning that, right? And then it's like, are you more or less satisfied with the economy than you were, 4 years ago or 8 years ago? And people are like 56% of respondents were more satisfied. That's even despite the pandemic. I think Trump mentioned that in his last stump speech. So I think that is really how you know where the mood of the country is really at. So now your question again. So I wanted to answer that thoroughly, but the heart of your question again was what?
The heart of my question was, do the Rust Belt states still got Trump's back?
Oh, absolutely. Especially now, for example, Biden misrepresented that the Boilermakers Union, and I'm a pro-union guy, I'm a labor guy. I know unions like the back of. I used to be a business agent, organizer, and chief negotiator for SEIU, Local 99 in Los Angeles. So I know unions. The Boilermakers Union in Pennsylvania was Biden claimed that they're backing him, and he's like had to go on TV and say this is a lie. We're backing Trump. And really, you have to look at all of the downstream industries. When you have power, is to create the, energy foundation to support new factories opening. You can't have a import substitution industrialization, ISI. You can't have import substitution industrialization or an autarkic, production model or a mercantile model of trade and production if you don't have enough energy. You can't have these windmills and stuff like that. So when Biden said in the debate that he's phasing out power from coal and natural gas, and they're going to go, the Paris Accord. Well, fucking France is nuclear powered.
Yeah.
Of course, France can say, "Oh, we're eliminating fossil fuels." They have nuclear power. That's a great option, by the way, too, especially next generation nuclear power. Doesn't have
neutrons
radiation
reactor
problems. Yeah, if they're not built by these private corporations that are cutting corners. Hypothetically, they're even better than any nuclear power we've seen before. So I'm not even like in favor of fracking or coal myself. I'm just saying objectively what's going on. So think about that. That's huge. This is, there was you can look at the Google search, the popularity of search terms and questions. So right after the debate, there was like a 6-fold increase or 4-fold increase of can I change my vote after that debate. Now everyone said that Trump was more, measured and more reasonable and was more polite, and that he was more articulate, and he zoned in on his talking points. So there couldn't have been people trying to change their vote away from Trump. I think that Biden has an appeal like in a Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life kind of grandpa. Like if we didn't know that he was a deep state crook, and if we didn't know about Burisma, if we didn't know about the pedophile ring, if we didn't know that if he wasn't Obama's vice president, if we didn't know about his 47 years in the Senate and government, right? If we didn't know about all that, and he was just like a Democrat that had a decent record, the way he's talking is great. I mean, there was no, in my opinion, real dementia or senility that he displayed in his debate. And, his points about the world we need to build and, what's possible, that's all good stuff. Now, that dark winter stuff I think is crazy because that's like an allusion to a deep state project to have a measles outbreak that kills a lot of people. So I don't know why he said long dark winter or whatever. That's actually a CIA project where there's a hypothetical measles outbreak. I don't know why the hell that's some dark, scary shit he's talking right there. I mean, I do not like that at all, but I think that most people would like what Biden was saying, except that it's Joe Biden, and then accept the talk about energy, because that's going to flip. In answer to your question, I mean, look, there hasn't been the kind of reindustrialization over 4 years that Trump was promising about, and I think that the outcome of the various China negotiations are part of it, but also, it's not like Trump is an emperor or a king or something, and who knows, and he's also just trying to get reelected as well. I mean, it's not, you have to like connect the distance between what he promises and what he's really trying to do. I think that many of it, like, a lot of the evidence, for example, a lot of the evidence that he has against these deep state operatives, or, maybe that Morning Joe guy like killed his assistant or whatever like that, like they could prosecute that stuff, but instead they use those threats of prosecution as bargaining chips and leverage to get in other things edgewise. Maybe that's why we had a much more fair debate. The last debate was the moderator was much more fair, reasonable. You see, I mean, they probably throw all kinds of stuff that people like, Q-tards are like, we're just waiting for the indictment, we're just waiting for the conviction. Like, bro, that's not going to happen. They're just they probably have real material on them, but they use that, they leverage that as blackmail to, to twist their arm. And these people are already established to be, blackmail vulnerable people, that their whole lives are built upon compromat. So they just take that compromat and then they just use that towards their own ends. Why would they prosecute them, then not have the leverage, right? Distract the public on a prosecution of something that might not connect the dots to the real issues that voters are concerned about. Voters don't care about corruption. They care about a growing economy. You know what? If the top 1% get more wealthy, they don't really care so long as, that rising tide lifts all boats or whatever. So that's really what's fundamentally going on. I don't think that Trump has lost any statistically significant votes in the Rust Belt or swing states. I think that if it was a clean election, I'm not saying this is connected to reality. I'm just saying what's in voters' minds. Okay? I think that he would win like 400 electors.
Yeah. And the next question is on my script is about California. I would like to ask you as a former Los Angelino, a Californian. So, has California always been such progressive, pro-democrat?
Oh yeah, that's the question. Well, look, the definition has changed. Yeah, it has always been, but what has been was not always what is. The words have changed meanings, dude. Like, California used to be a center of industry. After World War II, you have to read a book called City of Ports about Los Angeles. And after World War II, African Americans moved en masse to Los Angeles. Many of them were veterans of World War II. They were fought in the American side of the Great Patriotic War. Defeated fascism and came home, to victory parades. And then there was the Montgomery GI Bill. A lot of them were able to go to college, trade school. A lot of them had preferential hiring in different American companies that had been involved in the war effort, whether it was the big rubber companies, steel. So Southern California used to have all of that industry, but it was in the U.S. effort to break communist China off of the Soviet Union, Kissinger and the whole Nixon-Mao deal. That was the beginning of the end of industry in the United States and California. Progressivism in California really goes back to labor progressivism, like the Boilermakers, right? Who are supporting Trump. So that's the problem. But what happened is California changed demographically. A lot of East Coast people who come from the nomenclatura and who come from the bureaucratic class, who come from families that had a lot of influence in finance, families that might have come from Eastern Europe, families with a lot of connections to academia, and they moved more to Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area, Berkeley, and stuff like that. So that changed what progressivism is. Okay, that it changed a lot in the 80s. I remember when I was a kid in the 80s, like soccer was the sport, not football, and all the moms were driving, Volvos. They weren't driving like those Chevy Caprice station wagons. Like moms were driving they weren't driving minivans like the Astro or whatever, like moms were driving in the Midwest. They were driving like Volvos, which is has these like social democratic illusions, kind of like Playmobil and stuff. It's hard to like explain. I speak in illusions, right? So you get the picture. It's just a totally different Weltanschauung, and the whole gestalt has changed as well. So
yeah, so so California is going to be for Biden, like
absolutely, yeah,
yeah, and not just because I know there is some sort of, maybe I am wrong, but there is some sort of division that like the countryside, like one floor America, one story America, should I say, they vote for more like for conservative and for Republicans, while a big city America, such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, they vote for Democrats and for more progressive, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, so California has like 40-something million people, and the plurality of that is Los Angeles County and the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area, which includes like Orange County, the Inland Empire, and that changes a lot of this dynamic. I mean, I would like to keep the answer simple, so let me try. I would say that Trump will get more votes from California than any Republican since Reagan. Okay. But Biden will take the state. But I would say that there is a big movement to recall Democrat Governor Newsom. He's responsible for the deaths of people in old folks' homes, same as Cuomo in New York. And also the lockdowns. He's talking craziness like they didn't clear the forests of brush for all these years that he's been in office. So you're supposed to do it every year, and he's been letting it build up so that the next fires would be catastrophic. California stages their fires, by the way, because they're always in a budget deficit because they're unable to actually tax the tech companies in Silicon Valley appropriately. So they always have a budget deficit. That's why all like in Palo Alto and shit, Facebook is headquartered. They should have been taxing them, but instead they cry broke. They don't get the money, so then they set fires. Then they claim, emergency disaster relief, and then they get those, emergency disaster money from Washington to help offset the budget deficit. But this year, so they've always done that. Okay. This year, they decided to make it be like an extension of the riots and to make it be about global warming. And then you have, people who are aware of the Enron fiasco from like 15 years ago will remember. Now it's PG&E. So the electric company, like all these like conservative right-wing people talk, oh, socialism in California, the electric problems, just like Venezuela. It's like, no, hold on. Venezuela's under sanctions. Venezuela had no problems
before the sanctions.
Before sanctions, okay? And those are U.S. sanctions, not like sanctions from China, okay? So it's like very, very fucking abusive and crazy, like gaslighting. Like it's like, kicking someone until they, collapse and be like, oh, you're collapsing. And, it's like, wait, you're the one kicking, So, but California has a for-profit, in other words, the opposite of socialism. California has a privatized for-profit energy grid and network run by PG&E, which has corruptly lobbied the state legislature, which is like California's Congress, against regulations. So it's not like, oh, over-regulations are keeping, energy entrepreneurs from, fuck you. No, PG&E has lobbied for monopoly. It has kept energy entrepreneurs from popping up. But the problem with infrastructure and business in general is that the point is to externalize costs. So why did they not upkeep their grid? Why did they not maintain the wires? Why did they not invest in infrastructure? Because they have a protected monopoly. They can rape the customers at high energy rates. They can report, quarterly returns. They're a publicly traded company, so investors, the stock market's happy. That's why you have the brownouts in California, but then people are thinking that this is like the brownouts are connected to the fires are connected to global warming. We should have listened to Greta Thunberg, like. And then you have Newsom standing there like fucking Satan himself in front of the fires and shit, saying, "I'm not a demagogue," and that, bro, you're a demagogue. I'm not. This is not ideological. It's like, bro, this is ideology. And these fires are global warming, and I'm not going to debate this issue with anyone. Oh, so you're shutting down science? What happened to follow the science? And so you're shutting the science is all about debate. So California is probably going to recall Newsom. Newsom will probably be out. You see, the thing is that Democrats are only really able to successfully turn out votes for the president. There are more Democrats in the country than there are Republicans. But Republicans tend to have a more vested interest in local politics because they tend to be more like small business owners and things like this. So the regulations and the local politics matter a lot more to them. This goes back to the polling problem, because what happens, you have a lot more registered Democrats than Republicans. So what happens is that when these polls are polling likely voters, they are incorrectly defining a likely voter. They end up with a skew towards Democrats because there are more Democrat registered voters.
Yeah, and the only as I remember, the only Republican governor of California was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
We've had a few Republican. I mean, he was recent, and then I guess after that was Jerry Brown, or Brown came back. I've been out of California for a decade, but I've been in the Balkans here in southeastern Europe. But I was, we were taking workers to lobby. Schwarzenegger was the governor at the time. But before that, I mean, we had Gray Davis, who was recalled, and that's how Schwarzenegger came in. And before Davis, might have been Pete Wilson. I mean, I know Pete Wilson was Republican, Gray Davis Democrat, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So
California Democrats are fiscal conservatives when it comes to the interest of landowners and big tech. I mean, they let landowners and big tech and Hollywood. We had this thing called Prop 13 that regulated property taxes, and it's good if you're a long-term homeowner and don't sell, but it's really helped these big landowners and firms, Hollywood and stuff, because they were able to establish what are called, they were able to establish like a joint ownership. There's the term is just escapes my mind at the moment. It's late in the day for me, but it's a big problem, dude, in California. But I wouldn't, by no means are California Democrats like Green New Deal liberals. It's California, and Republicans are not like the same thing as like Tennessee or Ohio Republicans. I mean, there are those, but look, like California was part of Mexico, okay? So there is a manifest destiny and white supremacy ideology that's very strong among more affluent white Republicans in the Inland Empire and Orange County. But there are more salt of the earth white Republicans that don't share those views, that are Republicans for other reasons, that they're just more like they're born again Christians or Baptists or evangelicals. So it's that's the map, dude. That's the map. I'm trying to, it's like we can go simple or we can really give people an understanding of the situation.
Yeah, but part of my question is that I was planning like to ask you this, but we a little bit off topic, but I would like to ask you this. How would you assess the Arnold Schwarzenegger was he a good or bad governor?
I think that it's really hard to evaluate Schwarzenegger as
as a governor,
because he was right in there right when the housing market crisis hit, and it hit California really, really bad. But that was being created by the Wall Street corruption and the Ponzi scheme, the derivatives markets, and they were being packaged in a weird way, and they were handing out home loans to create a housing market bubble. But it was also a stock market bubble that was used as part of a bailout that created a cornering of the global perishable goods market that then was transformed into increasing the UN FAO food price index to create the Arab Spring, to overthrow those countries. And California was probably part of the heart of the housing market crisis. And Schwarzenegger had nothing to do with that. It was not his policy. It's not what, but you had, millions of Californians lose their homes. And the only thing that Schwarzenegger did objectionable was oppose a tax increase on large property holders that was meant to do sort of damage control on the budget deficits created by Prop 13, which is the reason, that budget deficit being the reason that California has to have arsons go out and set fires every few years to then get those federal emergency dollars. And we could have avoided that, but Schwarzenegger didn't allow that legislation to go through. But we could have lost, Facebook and people like that. I guess they lost Tesla in the end, but that wasn't under Schwarzenegger's watch either. I don't think Schwarzenegger was like, I don't think the California governor has that much power to do good. They have a lot more power to do fucked up things just because of the balance of power in the legislature, People have to respect and understand how much power the big landowners have, the agribusiness in the San Joaquin Valley in Central California. Those are big, powerful families. And then big tech, Silicon Valley, Hollywood. I mean, come on. This is huge. And then the governor has to always work in the service of those big business interests, Democrat or Republican. I don't think Schwarzenegger was a bad governor. Most of the left's hyperbole against him is, a nothing burger. It's just playing politics, like nitpicking these policy things. But when you look at every Democrat, they did the same stuff almost. So, he wasn't a bad governor, but you can't be great in California as a governor, though.
Okay, so Schwarzenegger being a Hollywood actor, was he kind of lobbying in the interests of Hollywood?
No, he came in to say that he was going to blow up the box. He was going to blow up the box because basically the way that the legislature controls the budget, kind of like the Congress, right? Nancy Pelosi is holding up the relief. Trump wants to get out relief. Nancy Pelosi is planning to hold it up and then blame Trump so that people are more desperate and then vote Democrat, because the thinking is that economically desperate people will vote more left, which I think was true in the past, but Biden's program doesn't have anything left-wing enough to economically. I mean, I'm not talking about like transsexuals, homosexuals, and like cultural new leftism, but like old school leftism, like budget, employment stuff. It's not appealing what Biden is saying. So with California, the same thing. Schwarzenegger came in saying he was going to blow up the box, meaning he was going to try to untangle some of the bureaucracy and he wasn't able to do that. He didn't lobby in favor of Hollywood, but I would say that the governor does get elected on a slate with normally with the attorney general. So sometimes they're from different parties, but the attorney general is a separate election. But in years that Republicans win the governorship, usually because people are there voting at the same time, the attorney general will also be from the same party. And every attorney general in California does not prosecute these like pedophilia and human trafficking rings that are going on in California. So Schwarzenegger, he doesn't have a lot of control over law enforcement, but I'm sure he didn't do any deep dive drops on the AG of California either. That's a good question. But look, California is probably going to declare for independence after the election. I wrote about that, and I wrote about that before. You can actually look on Strategic Culture Foundation. I wrote about this inevitability months before John Podesta's war game that includes California seceding in the event of a Trump
Victory.
Right. So that's really, I think, where you're going with your California questioning. That would be
Yeah.
my guess. But
Yeah. So, wasn't there an attempt for referendum for secession last year, 2019? Huh?
yeah, that was yes on 9 or something
Oh.
like that. Yes on 9. I think it was
Oh.
9. Yeah. The thing was weird is that the guy who was behind it was a young guy from Russia who had been a Democrat in Ohio, lobbyist or activist, and that was weird because then people tried to make some Russian connection out of that.
Oh,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
kind of like, when people happen to be Jewish and then it's like a Jewish thing. But he was Russian, the guy behind that. But he wasn't like from Russia. I mean, he was, yeah, I guess he moved when he was small to the United States. But yeah, that was a yes on 9, I think. That's right. But it didn't go anywhere. It wasn't put, either didn't collect enough signatures or it wasn't, or they dropped it.
Mhm.
But it certainly, I wrote about 6 years ago about the disintegration of the United States
Yeah.
that Dugan published on his journal. And I used statistics from the time that were, up to date then. And it was like 27% of Californians want their state to leave the United States. Okay, at the time. So, that's without any lobbying or public propaganda in that direction. That's just innate. So,
Yeah.
I think that if Trump wins, you will see Oregon, Washington, and California
Seceding.
well, they're not going to secede, but they're going to talk. They're going to try to create a constitutional crisis.
Oh.
They're going to try to withhold. See, California. This is something that conservatives don't like to hear.
Mhm.
The reason that if you go to parts of the Midwest and like let's say white suburbia, and the parks are nice and green, and the lawns are kept, and all the kids can go out and play football and baseball and stuff like that, and you have like clean streets.
Yeah.
A lot of these come from federal dollars, especially parks and recreation. And the federal budget is like dependent on California. See, California by itself would be the 7th most wealthy, powerful country on planet Earth. So it has a population, like I said, over 40 million now. This is it's like Germany. Okay.
Okay.
So imagine the EU without Germany is like imagine the United States
Without California.
without California. People don't understand that Californians are aware of the fact that their wealth, that their labor that they produce, the wealth is redistributed across the United States because of federalism. So now Newsom has already, first of all, he's a Satanist and a psychopath, but Newsom has already been talking about withholding the budget, that he's trying to make deals with China as a nation state. Use all these words already. Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, in my article I quoted, they already ran an article giving the arguments about why California, it's just, you'll see. So it's going to be, this is the fucking most crazy election I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, okay, we'll see. So, the next question is the big tech companies. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So, I hear a lot of news that, Twitter and Facebook intentionally deleted compromise on Biden. Like Twitter and Facebook, like the CEO of Facebook and Twitter are now being called out for deleting links or deleting posts with the compromise on Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. The big tech is extremely biased in favor of Democrats, in favor of Biden.
Yes it is. Yes they are, rather.
So are they gonna censor Trump supporters? They're gonna delete their accounts and
Already has happened. Yeah, it's already happening. Been happening.
Yeah.
First, they were deleting. Look,
Mhm.
people, we were warning about this 5 years ago. We were the first. Fort Roos News
Mhm.
uh, was one of the first, to be
Mhm.
a domestic production. I mean, everybody was, let's see, from the U.S. or New Zealand, Australia, England, all from A5 countries, and they were treating us like we were foreign
Agents.
agents when we were all A5ers. And Facebook froze our page. We lost our first Twitter account. I mean, we had tens of thousands of followers. We had way more than that on Facebook. Our second page is now frozen at 25,000, and we can't post to it.
Mhm.
Uh, because we were reporting that the U.S. had, this is the Obama and Nolan. They had the mercenaries, the war crimes, the chemical weapons being used on villages in the Donbass, and
Yeah.
snipers, and really a campaign of terrorism, kidnapping, abduction being carried out by NATO mercenaries. And all of that was verified. We had stuff that we were publishing even from the highly corrupt and biased OSCE was saying this. So we would just reproduce OSCE reports, and they just called that fake news. I'm like, well, then is the OSCE fake? Yeah, it is fake, but not for your reasons, you know. And even when the OSCE would report on this, it would be fact checked. So we've been experiencing this for 5 or 6 years, and we warned our readers and the public at the time that it starts here, and it's going to go all the way to what regular Americans are trying to consume with media. It's going to go all the way deep. People thought we were conspiracy theorists at the time, but we were right, and that's where it went. So now you have the anything pro-Trump is actually, well, around the same time after Hillary Clinton lost the election.
Mhm.
Mind you, she had been warning since 2011 that the United States was losing the information war as Secretary of State under Obama. And what she meant is that her emails were not secure. But what did end up happening was after she lost the election, she mobilized big tech, and they really introduced the fact-checking thing very big at the time. But it was only fact-checking people talking about Ukraine and Syria and Russia, and people who were for the first time doing like natural and homeopathic medicines and treatments, where there was like, what is it, colloidal silver and shit like that. Those people, natural news, they lost their pages back at the time. I remember our friend Mimi Laham, a
Yeah,
Syrian
Syrian
girl,
girl. Yeah.
she was getting, a lot of shit too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, uh, goodness. Yeah, dude, it's now they're like censoring New York Post, they're censoring Fox News, they're censoring like regular American, journalism media institutions, right? But the pro Donald Trump groups are being taken down from Facebook. But you know what? I don't think that's an issue. I mean, I can explain why that's not going to be the factor in the end, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned Ukraine, Donbass. So this has been on the news a lot recently. Joe Biden and Ukraine connection, the Burisma company, Burisma Holding, Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden's corruption. I think Trump has a lot of good compromise against Biden. So could you please tell me more about what is exactly what is the Trump Ukraine? Wait, I'm sorry, Biden. I'm sorry, Biden Ukraine
Right.
connection. So
Yeah, I
what
think
it is
most people
exactly?
probably know the story by now. I mean, so my newspaper broke the story in the English language 4 years ago when this began to go down, and it really boils down to a I guess you would call it like a holding company or investment company that deals in natural gas.
Yeah.
Was established in Ukraine and already had George Bush's former chief of counterterrorism, Islamic region, or chief of counterterrorism, on the board of directors. So the inclusion of Hunter Biden later was not really the big thing. It was set up because the idea, I mean, the idea was that Ukraine was going to keep Crimea.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they were going to block the Soyuz pipeline. They were going to cut off Soyuz and Nord Stream completely from Russia. Was going to be cut off completely from Europe, or almost completely, and they were going to force the EU to buy fracking gas from
United States.
United States. By the way, Biden lied when he said that he's against fracking.
He's pro-fracking.
Dude, that's what Burisma is all about. That's why people can't really connect the story very coherently. Because Burisma is about importing American natural gas from fracking
Into Europe.
into Europe through Ukraine.
Through Ukraine, wow.
So
Wait. Through Ukraine? From the United States through Ukraine? Well, isn't it more convenient to import it through France or Netherlands or Denmark? Why Ukraine?
well, you overthrow Erdogan. You control the Strait of the Bosphorus, the Marmara,
Yeah.
and the tankers just you have supply line dominance for the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
Russia is out of the Crimea. Burisma was going to be the biggest, most powerful energy consortium in Central and Eastern Europe, period.
Yeah.
That's the story that we know. We know the story, bro. We know the story for the past, 3-4 years?
Yeah.
Longer, six years. Fuck, we're in 2020. I'm getting old. I'm senile, dude. No, we've been on this story for 6 years. So now this was supposed to frustrate the Turk Stream, Blue Stream. Okay, contain Iran. See, the natural alliance is actually Iran and Turkey, has been historically. That was supposed to have the Persian pipeline.
Yeah.
The overthrowing Assad was supposed to bring in, the Israelis were supposed to take the Egyptian and Palestinian gas up through Syria.
Yeah.
And then you have, on the other side of the Arabian Peninsula, you have that pipeline was supposed to go through. Syria was in the way. Israel is supposed to work more closely with Greece. Be a check on any Turkish ambivalence over Cyprus. Numerous energy consortiums were developed, also with Russians, corrupt Russians that are dual citizen Israelis. The whole point, like what the corrupt and bullshit Duran newspaper was being financed in its early stage, one of their angel investors were Israeli Russians that were involved in the Israel, Cyprus, Greece alternative to Syria, once it was known that Syria was lost to the Zionist, aim. So, dude, Burisma was established to be huge. It already was staffed by important people who were all U.S. former military, the Biden's family in operatives in Ukraine. This involves Kamala Harris. It involves neocons like Kagan, like Pearl, like Kagan's wife. What's her face? So this is Burisma is set up to be what makes money. Now, I just read a Business Insider article saying that the story is fake, and they're trying to say that the prosecutor that Poroshenko fired him because he wasn't prosecuting Burisma enough. But that was the corruption that Biden was upset about. Like, fucking upside down world, bro. Like, upside down world. That's why they call it fake news. I'm not a conservative, you know. I'm not a Trump guy. This is why people are going to end up voting for Trump. I mean, Michael Moore said it years ago. It's like, this is fake news. These are lies coming from Democrats. Trump lies in a different way. He might lie about who he's going to go after, but I can't think of, you know, his major policy things that he hasn't demonstrably either delivered on or pushed on. You know, if Biden's fantasy world, if Biden weren't Biden, like I said, and his fantasy world could come into being, I could understand why he could win, or why lots of even Republicans might vote for Biden. You know, these people are sick. They're not even interested in trying to deliver on the things that they promise. The only thing that they would start to do are only the things that the Green New Deal type stuff, that's corporatist, that's going to, you know, put money, federal monies into their, you know, pockets. Like, that's how Elon Musk made his money, that idiot crook. That guy doesn't know the first thing about cars or space or anything. Okay? He was well positioned, and he is a welfare queen. He's a welfare queen. He's not an entrepreneur. He's the same as Andrew Yang, except more successful. He just came in after that Obama green energy money to create Tesla. He didn't like invent anything, right? And he didn't even come up with the money the way that entrepreneurs come up with money, you know, historically. He like got that Obama green energy money to make Tesla, and then he came in for the fact that Congress is so corrupt they refuse to finance NASA. So then they do SpaceX, because NASA, you can't get direct kickbacks to Congress because NASA, well, through JPL and then through other companies, but then that goes through NASA. But this way, Congress can directly get the kickbacks from SpaceX making money. And then it's also something that congressmen can invest in, right? Because congressmen are allowed to do what's illegal for everyone else, which is to know what's going to happen with the company before they publicly declare it. So they know when to buy and sell stocks for a company that's privatized. I'm telling you, the whole fucking shit's a racket. So, dude.
Since you mentioned Elon Musk, I can't resist but call him that Elon Musk is very, should I say, idolized among the pro-Western Russian opposition. People like Alexei Navalny, who wasn't poisoned by Putin, by the way. People like Alexei Navalny, the now deceased Boris Nemtsov, and those Russians who follow the more anti-Putin, pro-Western point. They idolize Elon Musk. They call him none else but a guru of high tech, although he's just an ordinary crook. But liberal, the so-called pro-Western. I know calling them a fifth column is absolutely appropriate. So the pro-Western fifth column in Russia, they completely idolize Musk, and they attack Roscosmos. And I'm not saying Roscosmos is perfect, and Roscosmos still has issues, has problems that need to be fixed. But man, idolize Musk like that, man, it's almost like a cult. It's almost like a cult-like.
Look, I mean, he's playing a game. He was pro-Obama. He made his money off of Obama. Look. I know this is weird, but look at Elon Musk. Look at his money, right? And then look at how ugly his girlfriends have been. No, this is like true knowledge. This is how you really evaluate. Now, it's one thing if you're just like a schlub, whatever, maybe you're marginally employed and it's hard to meet girls or whatever. Now, this guy, hypothetically, should have, you know, access to beautiful women, but the women in his life are neither beautiful nor interesting. So that means that he has a very low self-esteem and he has no mojo. Think about that. Now, that means that his entire life, this is all like Freudian and Jungian psychology, that means that his whole life is like this compensatory struggle against his unresolved issues like
Insecurities.
his lower self is insecurities. His lower self is in control. His lower self is the pilot of his ship. Now that's fucking crazy. So now think about, this guy is a faker, and people like that he's saying stuff against lockdowns. Yeah, well, just look at his tweets from like 2009. Like, I love Obama. Like, just this guy is a faker. So I mean, it's the SpaceX thing, what they did with the car, they put like car. That shit was so fake, dude. That was like the fakest thing I've ever seen. It was like, and then he's like, the reason it's real is because it looks fake. That's what he said. It looked really fake because it's real. If it was fake, it would have looked more real. Okay, that's what it must be then. Thanks, Elon. Thanks for clarifying that. Like, fuck, dude, that's not reality. That was a fake ass launch. It's like I want to think that, I don't want to think crazy things, Yuri. I don't want to think crazy things, but when the way Elon Musk puts it makes me think, like, is the moon even a location that people can travel to? You know what I mean? Like, is the moon there? Like, have we been there? I mean, it makes me ask. These people are ruining science. The way they politicize things.
Oh.
It's making rational people ask, like, deep dive questions. Like, does the moon exist? Because I don't think, if Elon Musk is saying he's going to the moon, I don't think I'm going to believe it.
Or he's going to Mars. Oh
my God. I don't think people even appreciate the distances involved.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think people appreciate the distances involved. I mean, it's like, I think that a Buddhist monk in a long, deep meditation has a better chance of teleporting his consciousness, like astral projecting his consciousness to the surface of Mars, than a craft like of metal and rivets and electronics has of traveling. I'm not even sure that space is a medium that can be traveled through. It makes more sense that space is a highly viscostic, hyperdense substance that's hard. Like a crystal, like when those, what's that material that's like hard but it's clear, like that rubberized glass, and then people put objects in it. What's that called?
It's rubberized.
I'm trying to look it up.
Oh shit!
Fucking. Why is the internet always slow? Like when you're trying to use it in front of somebody. It's like hyperspeed when you're alone. I swear to God, it knows. Silicon.
Silicon. Yeah.
We're just talking about it. Silicon. So you can have like solid state stuff in silicon. I think that space could be, I don't fucking know, but just thinking about like how does the atmosphere stay on the globe, right? Like if space is a vacuum, then it seems like everything should be sucked off of the
Earth.
Yeah, Earth. Because gravity is a weak force. And vacuum is a strong force. So it doesn't, I'm not even sure that you can go into space. I mean, I know that like, the Soviet Union and they did the, with all that, but maybe it didn't, but
Okay, so.
But anyway, Elon Musk, I don't believe it. So he's like, you're saying that he's the darling of the liberal opposition in Russia?
Oh, absolutely. When it comes to high tech and when it comes to criticize like lying about Roscosmos, and they say, oh, Elon Musk SpaceX has conducted a successful launch, but Roscosmos is just all the rockets are just go crashing down. It doesn't matter if the Roscosmos is launching it has more launches than the US, but
That's weird, because in the US, even with the crazy like anti-Russian thing, in the US they accurately report that SpaceX relies on Russian rockets.
Yeah, but that doesn't change anything in the mind of the almost cult-like pro-Western Russian anti-Putinists.
That's crazy when you think about it. I mean, because the SpaceX what doesn't have anything at all without Roscosmos. They need that. They've been using that. That's real strange. But it makes sense. It makes sense if space was not a place that you could actually travel in. It makes sense that it would be important to include, you know, the Russian side of space in the illusion of space. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass. This is not my area. I'm not claiming any specialty, and I just think, you know, and it doesn't make sense to me when I think about space like that. I mean, it seems that the movement of planets is that we don't understand how time and motion works. That time is that the movement of planets is more relativistic and related to the perspective of the observer, in the same way that subatomic particles appear to move based upon the location of the observer. And maybe the planets don't move at all, but that there are different consciousness base in the same way that it works on the subatomic level, that consciousness and observation of the observer is affecting the appearance of movement relative to the illusion of time, and that it might be that nothing's moving at all, and that, you know, that we're not moving either. But it's all very interesting to me. That's more interesting to me than, you know, Burisma, which we uncovered like 8 years ago or 6 years ago. But I think that with Burisma and how it's coming undone, I think people know the story, right? So if you want to skip ahead to this minute from the time when you asked the question to this marker here, when Joaquin answers the question, okay, and we stop talking about Silicon Space and Elon Musk. It's
Burisma.
basically, it was Burisma was highly fraudulent. They were engaged once they realized that once the war in Syria was lost, and once it was clear that the Crimean Peninsula was going to be Russian, and once it was clear that Angela Merkel wasn't going to betray the agreement that they've had going back to the 1960s with the Soviet Union on the importation of Soviet, now Russian gas, it was clear that Burisma could only be a way of shaking down local oligarchs. And it was a big scam against Poroshenko and his allies in the end. I mean, once the war in Syria was lost, and once Angela Merkel she was very clear, you're not joining NATO, you're not joining the
EU.
Once that was clear, then it was like, then what, what is this? So Burisma's fate could only become, and they probably already knew that, most of the whole Visegrad group and Middle Europa and that whole is a scam to trick countries like Poland and Lithuania and Latvia and Ukraine into thinking that this is a realistic American project, to get these little fake bullshit investment consortia related to defense, related to energy, related to perishable, non-perishable goods set up as black holes for local oligarchs to get liquidated by bigger apex predators like American con artists. So I think that that a lot of these post-Soviet oligarchs are losing big time, and I think that that's why they got behind Zelensky, in Ukraine, because even though it's not popular to say, first of all, Poroshenko was not as bad as it could have been. Ukraine could have said, fuck the Donbass, and they could have thrown all their military might at Crimea. I mean, they could have flattened Crimea before the fact they would have lost that war. But they could have destroyed, the cities, and they could have hurt people. That didn't happen. Poroshenko wouldn't do it. He has investments in Russia. He has the Russian chocolate company and things like that, which all maintained operation, kept making money from Poroshenko in Russia, in Putin's Russia.
Yeah, and that angered many Russian patriots. Like, how come Poroshenko is the enemy, but his factory in Russia is still working? And that angered many, amongst other things, that angered many Russian patriots. Many of them were saying that shut down this factory in Lipetsk because of fucking Poroshenko is the enemy. And
that's right, but that's his main source of money. But that's the thing that kind of kept him from doing something stupid with Crimea. So they said, you know what? Here's the deal. You can talk Crimea will be Ukraine again, but don't do anything in that direction. And nothing happened in that direction. Nothing happened in that direction. Every provocation was like a mercenary, Blackwater Gray, NATO bullshit provocation to suck Ukraine and Russia into a conflict near Mariupol. But it was like, we're going to keep the live action simulation of a conflict in Mariupol. We're not going to let that become a Crimea conflict. It didn't happen. And
Oh my
Zelensky
God.
even closer. Zelensky is like an American project of Trump and Putin. Zelensky is like the new, like Zelensky couldn't be there if not for Trump being in the US. But Putin is much happier with Zelensky than he was with Poroshenko. So that's the truth that Russian patriots, even people who like Putin, don't understand the Zelensky story. We were covering it from the minute he got elected. Because you have to look at everything. See, Poroshenko tried to do martial law, and then he was pushed back by the Rada. I remember leading up to the election there in November 2018.
2018,
Yeah, and they were like, we're going to do martial law. And then we're going to do martial law, and then that meant that journalists couldn't report things, and that what are they going to throw the election for Poroshenko? That was his last gambit. Who was behind all of his advisors and stuff trying to do that? The same people that had been involved with, you know, Yarosh, the same, you know, Yatsenyuk, everybody. It was like so clear that it was the Americans in the end trying to keep Poroshenko in and trying to keep Zelensky from you know, winning. I don't like Zelensky. I don't like his vibe.
I don't like.
Totally fake. He's an actor. He's a puppet. He doesn't know
He's a
anything.
clown. He's a fucking comedian. He's a
comedian. He's an actor. But
he's not a politician. He's not a
he's a better politician. See, Poroshenko had his own mind. Poroshenko was a calculating motherfucker. I mean, Kremlin would prefer Poroshenko over Timoshenko.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. The real crazy would have been someone like Timoshenko. That's who really the U.S. wanted to put in. Poroshenko was a compromise candidate that Russia agreed to with Germany. That's what the secret Minsk agreements that before when it was the dictatorship period before Poroshenko was elected. In between the old government and the new one. When was that? 2014? 2013?
When Poroshenko was elected?
No, right before when the color revolution happened in Maidan.
And then, it began in November 2013.
And then went to February 2014.
Yeah, February when Yanukovych was overthrown.
Yeah,
like we talk about Ukraine a lot. We speak the word Ukraine. If it is convenient for you to say the word Ukraine, then I'm fine with that. But as a rule on my channel, to me, Ukraine is kind of dead right now. So I prefer to call it historical Russian territories temporarily controlled by the criminal Kiev regime. But since it's a lot of words, I would like to prefer it to call just Kiev regime. Okay.
Yeah, the Kiev junta. Yeah.
Junta, I would like to not use the word junta, because to call Kiev regime a junta, I think it is an insult to juntas.
Oh, okay, because it's like a clown show more than a junta.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with just Kiev regime, or
Yeah, Zelensky is happy. Rather, Putin is happy that Zelensky cooperates with Trump on Burisma, and everything will come out about Burisma later. Trump is not gonna have the Attorney General prosecute these things. He's gonna build the case. They've already built the case. He uses leverage towards other things, and that's how politics works.
Yeah.
And that's gonna, disappoint a lot of people following like the QAnon story and things like that. They have all the information on the pedophiles and the corruption and the paper play and the quid pro quo. They have those cases built. They just like in Giuliani's style, when you're busting the mob, when you're busting a mafia, you divide and conquer. So when you divide some, you have to give people an out, and then you get them to flip, and you give them an out. I think that, who knows? Maybe with Epstein, they were going to give him an out too.
Yeah.
If they could get to flip him against someone bigger. So yeah,
Yeah.
Burisma. But I think people know the general story with Burisma.
Yeah.
But what happened is Biden was on TV and he said it that he put a quid pro quo to stop the investigation of Burisma, or you don't get the $1 billion, and that's what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Hunter Biden is on the board of directors of Burisma, and he got paid $185,000 a month. Yeah.
So you're telling me that Trump is not gonna actually give the case, or he has already made the case with Burisma, yeah?
Yeah.
But he is not going to use it directly against Biden. He's just going to use it as a leverage or as a bargaining chip. If you do this to win the election, but what after he wins? Will he give this one a go, or if he just will it be swept under the rug?
Look at all of the oligarchs that the pro-Putin patriots are like, why doesn't Putin go after them?
What oligarchs do you mean? In Russia or in Ukraine?
Yeah, Russian oligarchs in general. I mean, there was the original ones that he turned on, and you have like Abramovich and people like that. But what about let's pull up the list of Russian oligarchs. There's like an alphabet soup of them that are still around, right? So you have the USA, the U.S. Treasury in 2018 published a list. So how is that? The big complaint against Putin is that he doesn't go after these oligarchs. He only went after some, right?
All those who, like, Khodorkovsky was the most
Infamous.
But others who they agreed to play by the new rules. That's why
it. Right. But he didn't make people give money back to people that they took it from. They just have to play by the new rules.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you do. That's how it's done. So don't expect anything different in the U.S. Like the Biden family is not gonna get charged with anything. Okay, like think about it. The whole system is rotten. Like this is just like one little case. Like every senator has a bullshit.
Yeah.
Every general has a bullshit like this. Every single one of them. There's like dozens and dozens of Burismas around the world. All of them operate the same way. It's not like, oh, why was Hunter and Joe Biden so stupid to get caught? It's like, no. Like, they all operate like this. They follow the normal standard operating procedure. Every senator has these, almost.
So, if you touched a little bit the subject of Russian oligarchs, well, yeah, many Russian patriots who don't really understand the whole thing, who don't see the exact bigger picture, say, oh, why don't Putin, like, jail Chubais or some so I support the theory that, and I think Putin actually said this in one of the interviews a long time ago, that he made a deal with those who were around Yeltsin. They let him, the deal was like this: they let Putin into power, and in return Putin allows them to go to roam free, to give them immunity from persecution for what they done, and that was the deal.
It was you had to bring some order to the chaos, and you had to have the state had to be stronger. Like oligarchs could see that people have only so much time, and energy and resources, emotionally, physically, temporally, to like fight all these fights. They want to make money and gain power. But
Yeah.
if they're in a war of attrition, you know, like World War I, you're like fighting all winter for 10 meters and you lose 100,000 people. Like that was kind of like the oligarch fight financially. So it's stupid. So they needed a state that could be over and above the oligarchs, so that there are rules that they have to play by, so that the state is more efficient and it all their capitalist operations are more efficient. So it's not. I lost my microphone.
Yeah.
I don't like these things like start drifting off into fucking space.
Yeah.
But yeah. So just it works the same in the United States with Trump. All of they can't. Like it would cause too much unraveling of the system. It would cause too much danger and uncertainty in the system to go after Clinton. That never happened. Never gonna happen. You know, everyone knows about the crimes in Haiti, and everyone knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's a joke that everybody knows. In fact, he said it as a joke. You know, at the whatever Father What's His Face's fundraiser in 2016, he called Clinton out about the Haiti. You know, she said, "Oh, you know, it takes a village." You know, Clinton, she knows. You know, she took one from Haiti, and it was like ah ha ha ha. So, you know, it's a joke. They know it.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever happen, Yuri. Nothing will ever happen with that. You know, it's people, corruption. A lot of political movements get caught up with this stuff, obsessed with this stuff, and there's no solution. There's no solution. There's no solution to it.
Yeah, and Putin exactly jailed or expelled exactly those oligarchs who thought they were above the law.
That's it.
And they didn't want to play by the rules. They thought they were bigger than that, and they suffered for it.
Right.
Yeah.
They got expelled. Some of
They
them
got
died.
expelled or jailed.
Yeah,
Khodorkovsky actually did 10 years in jail, and even if and after he was freed, he emigrated to the UK, and even after that he just acts out of revenge. He wants to get revenge on Putin for what he done.
Yeah,
Although
it's so emotional.
Yeah, so emotional. Although he is a convicted murderer, he ordered a murder of a mayor of the city of Neftejugansk. Why? Because the mayor insisted on him paying taxes. Khodorkovsky didn't even want to pay tax in the budget.
Right. These people are.
Yeah.
It's the world. The world is run by psychopaths. And the world might not have always been run by psychopaths. I don't know, because history itself has been destroyed to paint a picture that history has always been run by psychopaths. I think that it's possible that psychopaths were powerful at different times, but I question the narrative that psychopaths have always run things. But it's complicated. The Enlightenment came with a criticism of power, which on the one hand probably exposed some truths about corruption and power, and destroyed the romantic myths of the good king and things like that. But when you destroy those myths, you also destroy those expectations, and you create a culture of nihilism and a culture of acquiescence to human nature. So it's a very complicated philosophical question what happened in Western European history over the past 250-300 years.
Yeah.
So, but I would suggest that there were characters in history like Muhammad, like Jesus, like good King Wenceslas, like people like this. I think that there is something to bloodlines in the extent that psychopathologies, there tends to be a strong genetic foundation in that. That's confirmed by the peer-reviewed literature. So if you have a psychopath oligarch and then their kids are going to and then he marries a psychopath woman gold digger, and
Yeah.
then they have extra psychopath children who inherit the money, and and we could be on a trajectory towards destruction, and I can see that there are good people in the world, but I think that good people are spending a lot of time being good and not building power, because power attracts people with a hole in their heart.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And psychopaths. So it attracts injured people who are furthering a cycle of injury. So I know that we're in a spiritual battle,
Yeah.
primarily. You see what I'm saying? So now I've been working on an idea. You know what a communal narcissist is? It's a type of sociopath who builds power by doing good things.
Oh.
So it's really strange. I'm developing this idea. It's not I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm using concepts that are coming from clinical psychology, because I'm always trying to analyze leaders in history and trying to understand their motivations.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've encountered as a problem. I know we're off subject, but this is good stuff, Yuri. This is what life's about. I mean, Barisma comes and goes, but this is really the eternal stuff. You see, like in history, leaders in the Enlightenment and afterwards, history books were rewritten and are constantly subject to revisions, where there are anti-romantic renderings of history, but they're equally as subjective. So they're just romantic in a different way, that are creating dark versions of history. That the church was always corrupt, that that kings were always corrupt, that the nobility was always corrupt, and these are narratives that come out of the French Revolution. So it's very, very strange, hard to unravel, because we don't have many good examples of good people in power today.
Well, except maybe Putin or...
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at people like this very seriously. I mean, people like this cause you to think, cause you to ask. It made me wonder why the Kim line in North Korea was so important, in terms of bloodlines. But I would bet that any of Khodorkovsky's kids are psychopaths.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy had billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he just pay whatever 100 million in taxes and murder somebody and get kicked out of the country and lose a lot of money, and have to be best friends with Mayor Khan or whatever in order to survive? It's I think from the point of view of good people, it's almost unthinkable.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, Joaquin. I think right now we could wrap this up, or if you have something else to say, then please feel free to do so.
Oh, just I would say in conclusion, dude, that there's going to be violence on election night. There's going to be mailboxes on fire. There's going to be attacks on election workers, on election monitors, unless Attorney General Barr has some secret project, some secret program in the works to prevent all that. But 10 days from now or whatever, it's going to be the craziest day since 9/11.
Oh.
And I would expect a huge false flag or some event right after or right before the election that completely is an X factor that changes any predictable, contingency plan or trajectory that people are, wargaming. There has to be, because it's too easy right now. I think that Trump will win, and I don't think that his opponents are going to go. They're smart people. I don't think they're going to go, and they're evil. That's a very bad combination, and that's why they're in power. So You have to. I would expect something very fucking crazy to happen.
Yeah, okay, we shall see what happens.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
What I think is going to be, well, neither, like, if Trump wins, Biden is not going to recognize the outcome. If Biden wins, then Trump is not going to recognize the outcome.
Right.
So yeah, I think there is going to be a lot of violence, and both sides, Biden and Trump supporters, are going to get violent. I don't know, will this escalate into a new civil war or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think my final concluding thought is that Noam Chomsky is wrong about most things most of the time, but the one piece of advice he gave that was good to the left was the left in the U.S. as it is right now. We're not talking about FARC or, Bolivian armies or something. We're talking Bolivarian militias. We're talking about the left in the U.S. They better not get into any kind of street violence with the constitutionalists. So, or Trump's base or whatever you want to call them. So, that's not going to go well for them at all. Yeah. I mean, all the veterans groups and stuff are going to be backing Trump.
Yeah, and all the gun owners and the fans of the connoisseurs of guns and the fans of gun culture are all pro-Trump because Democrats advocate for gun control.
It's like so stupid. I mean, for Democrats, in terms of dealing with a situation, like that. So yeah, I think so. Who do you want to win the election?
I want Trump to win the election.
Yeah,
why? Because he's I think he's more predictable. We know what is he going to do. He's not going to escalate things in Syria or in Ukraine or with the Kiev regime, because he promised military aid to Kiev regime, and Biden said that he promises military aid, like real, not just some javelins, like a lot of aid to Kiev in order to suppress the Donbass. If Biden wins, there is going to be a new war in Donbass, and the Ukrainian army in 2020 is not the Ukrainian army it was in 2014. But, well, neither is the Donbass army. So I think Trump is better. Trump is a businessman. You can always negotiate to get to some kind of a deal with him. While Biden is more of a politician, and he represents ideology, a set of values. I think people who will vote for Biden are not going to vote for Biden himself,
right,
but for the values he represents, for the forces who are behind Biden. And those forces want to, and those forces, they won't forgive. They blame Russia for Trump, but the exact thing is that Russia itself represents anti-globalism, anti-global, anti-one world government, pro-sovereignty. That's what they hate the most. That's why, and Trump is pro-sovereignty. He is against Trump canceled the TPP, TTIP.
Right.
That's why they're accusing Russia of helping Trump, because Trump and Putin, basically, they believe in the same values.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Also, I can tell you, here in the Balkans, in the West or Central Balkans, like Bosnia, I mean, Lavrov was openly talking about, like, when Obama was being crazy here in the Balkans, and we have these Bosnian Muslim Brotherhood guys who are strong in the Bosnian assembly.
Oh yeah.
And trying to force a constitutional crisis in the Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and so that the Serbian Republic, which is not the Serbia of Belgrade, but the Banja Luka
Yeah.
Serbian Republic. Well, it's called Republika Srpska.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
heard, I know it.
yeah, yeah. So people don't realize that there are two Serbias, and one of them is half the size of Bosnia Herzegovina, and it's neither Herzegovina or Bosnia.
It's
It's
Serbia.
Republika Srpska. Yeah, it's Serbia, and Lavrov was saying in 2014, at the peak of this insanity, because he was like, okay, we got the color revolution in Ukraine, Russia's going to lose Crimea, and now we're going to make a constitutional crisis in
In
Bosnia,
Bosnia.
so that Republika Srpska loses its autonomy, because they have their own security forces, their own paramilitary, and they're a Serbian country. So that was going to be the crisis. And now it's like, actually we have overthrow Djukanovic in Montenegro.
Yeah, that was
We
a big
have,
win. A big win for
yeah,
Russia, yeah.
yeah, we have even now
Yeah.
like some Americans that are going to support Serbian investment of housing of Serbians building in Kosovo, which is
Yeah.
like the opposite policy that Clinton had, which was
Oh,
ethnic
oh,
cleansing of Serbs
absolutely.
from Kosovo. That's the strangest thing I've ever seen. I think like Serbia is on the ascent. I mean, the GDP grew by 100 euros in the past couple of years, which is like important when it was only 400 euros a month. It's very important to grow by 100 euros to 500 euros. And like, you know, but if Biden is here, that will cancel that agreement on Kosovo. They will create the crisis in Bosnia. So I try to keep my head clear, and my wife doesn't believe me because I was so happy to see Clinton lose.
Oh, I was happy too,
She's
absolutely.
like, you like Trump? I'm like, no, I'm watching everything because I'm analyzing things, and you know, my wife's like, oh, you're watching, you know, you want to see him win. I said, well, I don't want to see war in the Balkans, but you know, I'm not like Team Trump here, but because I have to keep my head clear. Like I have to be. Once you're like for something, it's like kind of sway or skew your analysis to meet your desires. So I
know.
tried to keep myself like uninfected, you know, from wishes.
Yeah.
And I tried to look for the things that are good in Biden's program without real, you know, setting aside that Biden is Biden.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, but I don't want war in the Balkans because I live here, and my family, and, you know, like, so.
Yeah. So why was let me give you a little bit of history. Why was I supporting Trump when he was running first in 2016? Well, because Trump is the only candidate who said that wouldn't be great if we actually get along with Russia. I know maybe some say that, oh, Obama also was saying about he traveled to Russia and Obama, and the Clinton was the button, but with the button, yeah, but the recent, but the thing is, maybe because there are no people who speak good Russian there in the Clinton's inner circle, maybe it was just a mistake. But the thing is that actually the Russian writing on the button was not a reset. It's not a reset. It actually meant overload. Just when someone overloads and explodes. Like,
I remember that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So
they confused a little bit. They only missed like two letters. They should have a перезагрузка instead of a перегрузка. They missed just two letters. That's the wonders of the Russian language for you. Two letters.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like Trump is doing something different with the appointments that he's made to the Federal Reserve, or has influenced over the Federal Reserve, are metal guys, gold guys. That's really, really weird. So that shows something else. I think that the truth is something that Americans wouldn't like because of the way the word is framed. But Trump's real economic policy domestically is for a weak dollar. But because people, well, why would you want the dollar to be weak? We want a strong dollar. It's like, no. strong dollar is globalization. Strong dollar is globalization. You want a weak dollar. You want two separate currencies like China has. You know, you want a weak currency for people, and you want a strong currency for national acquisitions abroad. So I don't think people are at the level of understanding that difference, and they don't understand how a country can have two currencies, like China has two currencies, and I think that term weak dollar is just in the way. It's stronger dollar if you're an American business. It's stronger dollar. Like a weak dollar is stronger. It gives you more purchasing power if the goods are made in the United States.
Oh, absolutely.
So it promotes national production and nationalization of industry and things like that. It works against globalization, and it works against international corporations. So I don't know. We have a linguistic problem in the U.S. People don't want a weak dollar, but that's actually Trump's policy. Yeah, but he hasn't been able to, I don't think, get close to it yet. Anyway.
Well, and look, so why did I say he not just said that we will get along with Russia? He said that he said actually that Putin is a great guy, and that Russia, and we can't continue to be the policeman of the world. When he said, wow, I said, wow, this guy is great, this guy is smart. Please make him win the election. Let him win the election.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, that's all the right words. Those are all the right words. They're all the right words. Don't get me wrong. They're all the right words. You know, my sense is that it's like the Titanic, and it's like Trump is like woke up 3 hours before the iceberg, and he's trying to like turn the wheel, but it's like so hard to like, you know, I mean, I don't like the anti-China rhetoric. I think it's retarded, but I understand it. But it's like, I don't think that like the whole Bannon line of propaganda about the Chinese communists and all this Alex Jones Bannon stuff is like so fucking retarded. The Hong Kong thing is retarded, but it's like, you don't have, like, China could be a carbon copy of the United States. You see what I'm saying? It could be a mirror image of the United States, and the fact that Americans are losing their jobs to outsourcing to China would still be the problem. So just the political shit's stupid. But that's my final comment.
Yeah. Okay, Joaquin, it's been a great pleasure having you here.
Marathon. Yeah, you got like
it's been a very long interview. It's a 1 hour and 46 minutes, and nevertheless it was a very great interview with a very great video. I think it's one of the best that we have ever had.
Oh, very much so. Great.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So Joaquin, bye Joaquin, bye everyone. I'm going to edit and upload the video. It's going to be long and very interesting. Yeah.
Great.
Great.
To it. Okay.
Okay. Bye everyone.
Vidimos se.